let's talk about the Pareto Principle. Now, for those that have never heard of Pareto Principle, it's actually something that's going to come back later in the course when we talk about the science and the techniques. But a quick Wikipedia search shows us that the Pareto Principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, is the idea of the law of vital few. What does that mean? The 80-20 rule can be applied to a lot of things in life. It's the idea that roughly 80% of the results, the effects, usually comes from 20% of the causes or inputs. So we can use that principle in many ways. For example, in management, the idea that 80% of sales comes from 20% of clients. Or when it comes to programming, that 80% of code comes from 20% of the programmers. The Pareto Principle is exactly that. It's a principle. It's not a law. It's not a fact. But it often applies to a lot of things. And what most people get wrong is that the Pareto Principle is not necessarily about what is this 20% that gives us the 80% of the result, but it's about eliminating things. Eliminating the 100% down to 20%. What's the 20% that's going to get me 80% of the result? For example, this painting, a famous painting named Composition by Piet Monard. Let's just say it's a very expensive painting. Focuses on this, right? Eliminating a painting to its essence. Just a few simple colors, a few simple lines and shapes. You see, most people think of mastering a topic as taking a lifetime. To become the best in the world at something takes your entire life, right? And yes, you may be right. But most of the time, to become a master at something usually means around being top 5% of the world. It doesn't mean that you have to be the number one person. Mastery simply means you're in the top 5%. And in order to be a master of something, you need to figure out what are the critical skills that are going to give you the biggest results. The closer we get to 100% mastery, the longer and longer it takes. But usually, the initial 80% can be achieved quite fast. And this principle is what we're going to use later on in the course to develop this skill of getting to 80% as fast as possible. And this is something that I truly believe in. When you're working on a task, you want to get into the habit of asking, is this the best use of my time? Is this the 20% of work that I really need to get to that first 80% of the result? Or am I just trying to do so many things at the same time without actually focusing on what really matters? The Pareto Principle is crucial in our understanding of being efficient learners. And like I said, we'll get to it shortly. For now, remember this. Is this the best use of my time? Adding things doesn't necessarily mean better. Instead, focus on that core 20%.